We often refer to baking like a sort of an art. And like for any other craft, we do need a basic equipment. So what I'm going to do, I will present the basic equipment which someone who starts doing some baking should have in order to get success. I'm going to start with a hand mixer, which is not an expensive investment. It's just about £25 to get a good quality one. And I'm referring here to a Kenwood hand mixer, which has about 450 watts. Now, there are cheaper hand mixers, but I wouldn't recommend to get anything below 450 watts because it will not be powerful enough to help you make sponges, things like meringues or macaroons, fillings like buttercream or ganaches. So 450 watts will be your minimum power when you look to buy one. But as I said, Kenwood, this particular model, it will cost you about £25, which I think is quite a reasonably price considering you can use it for preparing loads and loads of things and it will keep you a very long time. This, for example, is already 2 years old and I've used it intensively. Now they usually come with hooks and also whisks. I intend to use whisks the more. And whenever I feel that the speed is too high for the product I want to make, I intend to use one whisk. So either one whisk or two whisks, and I can adjust the speed based on whatever products I intend to prepare for baking. Now, for those who can afford to invest more, a stand mixer will always be a great investment. But because it's costly, it will probably involve spending about £600 to £700. This is not a necessarily, urgent basic type of equipment. But when you have one, and this, for example, is about 5 years old. I do have another one identical, which is about 12 years old, and they still works perfectly. Whenever you decide to invest in buying a stand mixer, make sure you get a branded one. And it's not just getting the branded one, getting the model, which is going to help you create good quality products. Because the purpose why you get a stand mixer is to save you time. But if you buy one which doesn't perform adequately, then it will be just a waste of time. So this has about 1400 watts and it's got different speeds, can be adjusted, and also different attachments. So this will be the one which I will probably use for making the majority of the sponges, some meringues or macarons. Now the hook is normally used for creating firm doughs. For making soft doughs like cookie doughs, I normally intend to use the flat beater, but both can work. The flat beater is also quite useful when preparing things like royal icing, where I don't want to incorporate too much air onto my mixture. And I also have got a silicone attachment, which is quite useful when preparing aerated mixes like buttercreams. Now, of course, you can practically make some very basic bakings using a handheld mixer, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on your wrists, so I wouldn't recommend starting a decent kind of work based on just a handheld whisk. Going into the baking trays, I would say my best recommendation will be to get some perforated trays. Now, if you have already the round tins, that's fine, but I end up not using them very much. They do take a lot of space and also are not so flexible when it comes to the size and shape of the sponges I possibly need. So what I've decided to do, and I've done this for the last probably 10 years, was to look at some trays. And I've got here a selection of trays which I regularly use. I've got perforated trays, and the reason why I've decided to go for perforated is because they do allow the heat to get through with ease. So the baking time is shorter, and not necessarily about saving energy, but saying that, that's quite an important fact. is about saving time, because when you save time, you actually save energy as well. But it saves time because your sponge or whatever you bake, if there are any kind of doughs like cookie doughs or any kind of pastry work, when they are flat, they intend to bake quicker because there is a large surface exposed to the baking. So that's the reason why I intend to use those perforated trays. The way how I use them, it will be shown throughout the different tutorials and videos which we will have in regards with different types of bakings. But just for now, I want to say that I normally use reusable Glide liners. This particular one has been used for hundreds of times and is still good. The other one is a bit newer, but still has been used for quite a lot of bakings, and I normally use it for those large trays are used for baking macarons and cookies, while those are used for baking sponges. So in case that you don't want to invest in getting those liners which are reusable, you can definitely get some parchment paper, and I would recommend parchment paper rather than baking paper, because the parchment paper does have a coat of silicone which helps a lot with the strength, and also it doesn't allow the moisture to get through, while baking paper, it doesn't have usually any extra coating, so it's literally just a type of paper which might get quite soft when baking. The liners, they usually are Teflon coated, so they are more resistant to moisture and also repeated use. I also have cupcake trays on the side, so for those who are planning to bake cupcakes, those kind of trays are a must. And you also have to get your right accessories like cupcake cases. You can see there are different sizes. Those would be the typical traditional cupcake cases, while those would be the large cupcake cases. There are even larger, which are considered our muffin cases, or smaller, which are considered like mini cupcake cases. So obviously the recipes, when we use the recipes and we say cupcake size, we refer to what traditionally is called cupcake size. Well, when we go for something like this, we say large size cupcake cases, or sometimes we call them muffin size, even if, as I said, there are even larger size cupcake cases. I quite often intend to use the bowl of my stand mixer to do the final mixing, but when that's not possible, I intend to use like plastic bowls, and I recommend plastic because in a kitchen you can come across with accidents, and if your bowls are made out of glass, they can break. If they're made out of metal, they might not be suitable to fit into the microwave. If you've got something which should go into the microwave, then you have to obviously use something which is microwave safe. So the plastic ones are super good for all kind of jobs, easy to clean, easy to maintain. I also prefer the ones with a good grip, because that just allows you to control the stirring or whipping better. Now when it comes to stirring or mixing, I'm using handheld whisks, which are quite useful, and make sure you go for a strong one. Even if you invest a little bit more and get a good quality one, which probably will cost about £10, that's going to keep you for longer than if you buy a £1 worth whisk, which will kind of get ruined in no time. With the spatulas, which we normally intend to say fold in or mix, a good quality silicone spatula should be connected, so the handle should not be removable, because if it is removable, you end up with lots of bacteria build up in between the soft side and the handle. It will be good to get one quite wide if possible, and also flexible, so that's going to allow you to scrape everything from the side of the bowl with ease. Now you might wonder, excuse me, you might wonder, if I bake everything flat, how can I turn up getting some round cakes? Now the way how I do it is by using cutters. So I've got here some set of cutters. Some are round and some are square. Now obviously with the square ones you can just very easy just cut into a square shape or a rectangular shape with ease. You don't necessarily need a set of cutters, but they can be good for building the cake. But with the round ones, they can make your life quite easy, because you bake your sponge, and then based on the size you want to go to when you build your cake, you can pick the right size cutter, and then you can cut and build up your cake with ease. Also, those cutters will be used for building the cake, as we will see on the tutorials, which will be focusing on the baking process and assembling of the cakes. What you can also do, if you really want to bake a round cake, but you don't want to invest in getting the round tins, and it's not necessarily about investing in getting the round tins, it's, as I said, having, you know, all that amount of tins to store on the side. They're just so space consuming, and they do actually end up affecting your budget as well. You can use those cutters to bake as well. So presumably having some parchment paper, you can create yourself a frame, and you can use the round cutter to maintain that paper, and you can pour the mixture inside and you can bake. So yeah, you can practically just use the cutters as your way to bake round cakes. Or you can go for a collapsible ring and go even for a huge size if you really, really want to bake round. Alternatively, you will just bake onto flat trays, and then you will use the round cutters to cut to the size required. Say if you want to make a huge cake, this I think goes to about 16 inches. But if you want even bigger, then you just got your sponge, you cut as much as you can, and then you cut another piece and you fill in a huge size, which will be quite difficult to bake. Some of those large sizes might not even fit in your oven, but baking the sponges in this way, you will save the time and also give you the right size when it comes to trimming. Obviously you will need a glove to help you maneuver the hot trays, and for preparation I intend to use nitrile gloves, but they are not a must. It's just something which I prefer to use. So I hope that describing this very basic equipment, it will inspire you about what to get and get ready for your first